You've probably heard it before, no pain, no gain. But if you're still exhausted, reactive, or stuck, what exactly are you gaining? Today we're talking about a mindset that sounds productive, but often reinforces the exact emotional patterns you're trying to shift. It's a pattern I see all the time in high performers. And if you've been trained to believe that progress must feel hard, this might land. Before we begin, when I say emotional state, I mean the internal setting you're in, like calm, pressure, clarity, or frustration. The one that runs underneath your actions, shaping how you respond. Discipline isn't the problem. In fact, the ability to follow through, stay consistent, and show up when it's hard, that's a strength. But the question isn't whether you're taking action, it's what emotional state you're generating intensity inside of. A lot of people carry this unconscious belief: if it doesn't hurt, it doesn't count. If I'm not pushing myself to the edge, I'm not doing enough. If I feel calm, I must be slacking. So what do? They bring intensity, but apply it inside a state of urgency, self-doubt, or frustration. That intensity still creates results, but not the kind they want. Because what they're really reinforcing is an emotional pattern: pressure, collapse, instability. That becomes the baseline. And over time, their system starts to equate effort with emotional strain. Let's be clear, intensity is how change happens. It's not the problem. It's a tool. Intensity plus repetition is what creates transformation. But what matters is the emotional state you're applying that intensity inside of. Someone I worked with trained every day, worked 60 plus hours a week, always pushing forward. And anytime he felt even a hint of peace or stillness, he'd panic. He'd tell himself, I must be missing something. So he'd ramp the pressure back up just to feel like he was doing enough. He wasn't lazy, he wasn't unmotivated, he was just generating intensity inside a trained state of stress. So instead of building resilience, he was reinforcing depletion. The system was learning how to push, but not how to sustain. And eventually, he started to crash. Not because he stopped working, but because the state underneath his effort was never stable. The phrase didn't come from emotional training. It came from physical conditioning, popularized in fitness culture, especially in the 80s and 90s. It was used to describe the intensity needed to build muscle or endurance. And in that context, it made a kind of sense. Discomfort was framed as a sign of effort. But even in the body, pain isn't always progress. Without alignment, without the right form, focus, and recovery, pain can just become injury. And when that same mindset is applied to your inner world, you start chasing discomfort as proof you're growing, instead of using intensity to train a state you've actually chosen. Let's say you're in a hard conversation. It feels uncomfortable, vulnerable, exposed. That discomfort isn't the problem, but what state are you bringing to it? Are you applying intensity from presence, groundedness, and clarity? Or are you reinforcing fear, guilt, or pressure? Because whatever state you bring intensity to, that's the one you're training. The real issue behind no pain, no gain is this: what emotional state are you reinforcing when things get hard? If you've been trained to believe progress only happens through friction, you'll unconsciously resist ease. You'll dismiss calm. You'll push past your limits because only discomfort feels productive. I've worked with people who are wildly successful externally, but they don't trust themselves to slow down. Stillness feels unsafe. Rest triggers anxiety. Why? Because the nervous system has learned to pair intensity with pressure, and peace feels unfamiliar. They're still training, just in the wrong direction. Because effort inside of misalignment doesn't build power, it builds exhaustion. If this is landing, hit subscribe. I drop videos each week to help you train your inner world with structure and clarity. There's a moment where action keeps happening, but the internal system has already collapsed. It might look like hustle. It might get praise, but under the surface, tension, resentment, fatigue. And over time, your nervous system starts to anticipate pain every time you take action. So even small efforts feel heavy. Now, you're not just doing the reps, you're training emotional resistance into the process itself. That's how no pain, no gain becomes a trap. Not because intensity is bad, but because you're unconsciously pairing it with collapse. And by collapse, I don't just mean burnout. I mean the emotional drop that happens when the system loses alignment. The baseline falls out from under you. And the only way to feel productive again is to push harder. That's a cycle, but it can be retrained. So how do you shift it? You don't remove the intensity, you redirect it and apply it to a state you've chosen. Let's say you're up against something hard, deadline, conversation, training session. You pause and ask, what emotional state am I applying this intensity to? Is it aligned with who I'm committed to becoming? If not, that's your moment to redirect. You don't stop the effort, you shift the state underneath it. You choose steadiness instead of panic. You choose clarity instead of doubt. You train calm with intensity. Same effort, different nervous system response. Different long-term result. If you're hearing this and thinking, this sounds like me, you're not broken, you've just been training a pattern that no longer serves, and that can change. Every moment is a rep, emotionally, neurologically, physically. So the question isn't whether intensity matters. It's whether you're using it to reinforce the state you want. Intensity without emotional choice just trains your default. But intensity plus alignment equals transformation. That's how you build real strength, not just in your actions, but in your state as you act. Someone I worked with used to spiral after every big success. Once the pressure lifted, he'd crash. His nervous system only knew how to operate from tension. Now, he still trains hard, still performs at a high level, but the baseline is different. He's not chasing the collapse anymore. He's applying intensity from stability. And the results compound because the system is no longer fighting itself. What emotional state are you applying your intensity to over and over without realizing it? If you're ready to stop managing symptoms and start training a steady, resilient inner state, I've built a system for that. It integrates perception, emotion, and nervous system, so you don't just understand your patterns, you actually shift them. The link's below. I also share practices weekly on Instagram at Mike Wang Coaching. And if you want more depth, you can join the newsletter below. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.